Hey, what's up, guys? We're back with another Bracketology today. Super excited for this video because it's been a week since the last video. So much has happened in college basketball. And we saw the top 16 reveal on Saturday, which gave us a lot of insight into how the committee is feeling about certain teams, certain conferences. So I wanted to start today's video off by just quickly looking at the top 16 reveal, giving my thoughts on it. And yeah, so let's get into that. All right, here we go. So first things first, I think we all probably thought this. The Big 12 is really being valued by the committee. I mean, we knew they would be. The Big 12 is having a sensational year. So we see five teams in the top 16. And without Mike Miles getting hurt there for that 5-6 game stretch, we probably see TCU also in this top 16 reveal, which so we could have had six Big 12 teams in the top 16 reveal, which is just insane to think about. It's kind of crazy. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Seen this many teams from one conference in the top 16 reveal. So it's pretty insane. But something that jumped out to me, I thought the Big East was a little bit disrespected when I was watching this live on Saturday. I think Marquette probably, maybe you can make an argument for Xavier too, but I think Marquette has the best resume at this point in the Big East. I thought at least one of these Big East teams deserved to be at least a 3 seed. I think Marquette deserved a 3 seed. I think you could have put either K-State or Iowa State, who are having great years, but I thought you could have put one of them on the 4 line, um, and bump Marquette up to a 3 line. I I think the Big East is a really, really good conference. 4 or 5 teams that can really make a run. 4 or 5 teams that have really good resumes. I thought one of them should have at least been on the 3 seed line. So I didn't really like that. But it and the ACC is really it's weird to only see one ACC team in the top 16 or Bill. So in Virginia is the only one we see out of the ACC. So um that was interesting to see. Not too surprising because the ACC is not having a good year. Again, they didn't have a great year last year, but they're not having a good year this year either. Um, so yeah, the top 16 reveal was interesting. We can kind of see what the committee's thinking. A little confusing in some spots. It doesn't. There's not like a clear pattern for how they're looking at things, but nevertheless, it was good to see what they're valuing, and they're definitely valuing the Big 12 and the strength of that conference. And undervaluing, maybe the Big East, in my opinion. But with all that said, let's look at the bubble. Let's look at Joe Lenardi. He released another bracket today. New update came out this morning for it. Every Tuesday, Friday, he usually comes out with a new update. So yeah, let's get into it. So Oklahoma State and West Virginia, they had a big game yesterday, and West Virginia desperately needed it. They got that win. And with that win, we now have 8 of the 10 Big 12 teams locked in the tournament as of right now, which is pretty incredible. Big 12's had such a long string of success now. Um, and then North Carolina is the first four out, and I don't even think they don't even belong in the first four out. They need to be in the next four out. I don't like how they're in the first four out even. They're 0-9 in quad one games. They don't have any marquee wins on the year really at all. I mean, I don't know how they're like Joe is putting them there. Maybe it's brand, maybe I'm not sure. But I think I would rather see a team like Utah State get into the tournament over a team like North Carolina who's 0-9 in quad one. I think a team like Utah State would be, I don't know. I just feel like one of those teams is more deserving. College of Charleston, probably more deserving. Like it's just, I don't know. So UNC's there in the first four out. They got some opportunities. I imagine they're going to win one or two of these, and they're going to find themselves in. But we'll see. Then we see Texas Tech. They're finding their way back on. They're on the next four out line now after a pretty abysmal first 2/3 of the season. They've picked it up in this back third. And Texas Tech, they got to believe it or not, they got a chance to get in the tournament if they can get a couple more wins or get a couple wins in the Big 12 tournament. So yeah, let's get into the actual bracket now, though. Let's get into this. So right off the bat, we got Bama. Bama's having a phenomenal season, led by freshman of the year Brandon Miller. We all know how good Bama is. They're going to get by Alcorn State, Fairleigh Dickinson. And then this 8-9 matchup, when I saw this bracketology this morning, I was like, dang, I didn't want to see this because these are two of the teams in the 8-9 line that I really like. I like NC State a lot. Great guard play at NC State. And then Memphis, I really like. And I think Memphis, if they would have had a healthy Kendrick Davis on Sunday, Memphis might have walked in to Houston and beat them. So, but we don't know. He was hurt. He hopefully will be back soon. But I really like this NC State Memphis game because it would just be so competitive. So many good players in this game. I'm gonna give the nod to NC State though in this one because I think NC State has a little more options to go to when it comes to scoring the ball. Memphis is more led by just DeAndre Williams, their power forward, and then Kendrick Davis, their star point guard. So not as many guys score for them. It's less of a balanced attack. I think NC State has more guys to score, more options. It'd be a really good game though. I could see it going either way. And it's tough to see them matched up because I really like both these teams, but I'm going to go NC State on this one. Creighton and Kent State. If you've seen the last couple videos, I've really liked Kent State, and I picked them to have an upset a couple different times, but not against this Creighton team. It's a talented Creighton team. This is a really good Creighton team. They're playing their best ball right now. They didn't have a good well, they had a good start to the season. I think they start out 6-0 or whatever, but then they had that stretch where they end up losing 6 in a row. But 3 of those games were without Kalkbrenner, who is vital to Creighton's success. But I think Creighton would be too much for Kent State, especially Kalkbrenner. It would be tough for Kent State to stop. He, 7'1", skilled big man. He's kind of slow, but he gets the job done. He's a good player. All right, so we're on to Indiana versus Yale, and Yale, is putting together a pretty good season in the Ivy, and they only lost by like 10 to Kentucky earlier in the year. I think Butler only beat them by like 8 or 10. So they've hung with some Power 5, Power 6 teams, but Indiana, I thought at some point they were going to have like a major drop off coming soon, but Trace Jackson Davis, he just keeps getting the job done. He put up another 20-10 game against Illinois on Saturday. They lost to Northwestern earlier in the week, but that's Northwestern's a solid squad, second in the Big Ten. So I think Trace Jackson Davis probably poses too much of a threat for Yale. He's just tearing it up this whole year. It's just every game you look at the box score, you look at Indiana, 20-10, 20-10, 30-20. He just puts up numbers every game. He's so consistent. So I like Indiana there. But Yale could keep that game close. If you limit Trace Jackson Davis, you definitely have a chance to beat Indiana. So you never know. TCU versus Nevada, Mississippi State. I'd probably lean Mississippi State to win that game because that's a gritty, tough team. They play defense at an extremely high level. Chris Jones has done a great job Mississippi State this year. But I love TCU. I think Mike Miles is terrific. They have a lot of dogs on this TCU team. They lose a tough one last night at home against Kansas, but Kansas has a resume that to me is the best in the nation, and it's a tough Kansas team. So there's no, you can't blame TCU for dropping a game like that. And it's only Mike Miles' second game back from his injury, so he's still rounding into form. He's still getting back into shape. So I like TCU here. I'm a huge fan of this TCU team. Virginia, Colgate. This is where, in this edition of the bracket, we're going to see our first big upset. We're going to have Colgate beating Virginia. Virginia hasn't looked as good of late. They've dropped not dropped. They've won their last 2 games. They beat Notre Dame by 2 points, and then they beat Louisville only by 3. And we all know how bad Louisville is this year. And Notre Dame's not much better. I think they're both 2-14 in the ACC, if I remember correctly. So, and Colgate, if you guys remember these last few years, Colgate finds their way into the tournament often, and it's due to their high octane offense. And for most of the season, Colgate was only averaging, in the 70s, which isn't bad, like 60s, 70s. They weren't scoring as much as they're used to, but these last 4 or 5 games, Colgate's offense has been tearing it up. They're scoring in the 80s and 90s. And given that is against teams that aren't of the caliber of Virginia, especially we all know Virginia's defense, but if Colgate's able to get hot and Virginia at times can struggle to score the ball, that's the recipe for an upset. We know Virginia can be prone to be upset. They also can be prone to win a lot of games in March too. We saw them win the title a few years ago, but I like Colgate in this one. Illinois, Florida Atlantic. I think I haven't seen Florida Atlantic play other than the one game they lost to Middle Tennessee State. So that wasn't a great showing for them. But with that said, I think Illinois probably would be a little bit of a matchup issue. Florida Atlantic's one of the only teams not too familiar with. Um, I still need to watch more of Florida Atlantic. I think Illinois though is a really talented squad still. A lot of length on Illinois. A lot of length. You got 6'9" Meyer, 6'10" Danger, 6'10" Hawkins, and those are all in the starting lineup. Well, Danger sometimes comes off the bench, but it's still a really long athletic Illinois team. So I like Illinois. I think at some point down the stretch, Illinois is going to start to hit their stride completely. Beat Minnesota last night without Terrence Shannon, so that was good. UCLA and Kennesaw State. Shout out to Kennesaw State. They had a big win versus Liberty, and then dropped the questionable game against Queens. I think Queens, North Carolina, or some school like that. Dropped the game against them, which I would have maybe even thought about an upset for Kennesaw State over UCLA, but no, not today. UCLA, well coached team. They play tremendous defense. They're top five in Ken Palm defensive efficiency rating, I believe. So UCLA probably gets by that one. All right, so we got Bama, NC State, and I would like to see NC State make a run. I would, but against this Bama team, I don't think it matches up great. I think Brandon Miller would be able to get his in this game. I think a little too much length. I hate how we have to see this Bama NC State matchup because I think NC State is one of those teams that is kind of like, has that sneaky potential for a run from that 8 seed line, but I don't love this one for them, so I'm gonna have Bama going on. Creighton, Indiana. What I what I like for Creighton in this is they they have guards like Nimhard and Trey Alexander, who, well, especially Trey Alexander, he was in the tournament last year. He balled out, down the stretch, and now they're healthy. They got Nimhard back this year. I'm still not fully sold on this Indiana team, even with the success they've had. I'm still not fully sold on them yet. Um, but they're getting me more and more. But I like Creighton. I think Creighton's better than a 5 seed. I think their talent level is a talent level of a top 10 nation. They don't have much depth, but as long as they stay out of foul trouble, that shouldn't be too big of an issue for them. So we got Creighton and Bam moving on. So now we got TCU Colgate. I don't think Colgate's going to be able to make a Cinderella run here. I think TCU's too tough. TCU would be able to get by them. Illinois and UCLA. This is a rematch. Would be a rematch from what we saw earlier in the year in the MGM main event, and we saw Illinois pull off a incredible comeback. Terrence Shannon was incredible that game. He had 31 points, if I remember right. And I think Illinois could repeat that success and beat UCLA again. I think Illinois matched up really well against UCLA. UCLA is a good defensive team. I don't think it bothers Illinois too much. I think Illinois matches them size wise equally. They have a guy in Matthew Meyer who can just absolutely get hot, and he's gotten hot for Illinois several times this year and just took over stretches of games. And then Terrence Shannon's an alpha dog, and he can take over games too, like he did against UCLA. So I like Illinois there. And UCLA at times just struggles to score the ball also. So Illinois, TCU. I'm gonna go TCU here because I don't know. Illinois, we haven't been able to get to, we actually haven't made a Sweet 16 in like 16 years or whatever, 17 years, but and I don't think we're gonna get to an Elite Eight probably this year. This TCU team would match up pretty well against us. TCU's having a great year. I think TCU is also better than a 6 seed in terms of talent wise. They just had that stretch without Mike Miles, but when they're healthy, TCU is tough. We're gonna have TCU beating Illinois. Bama, Creighton. This is tough to choose between, but I'm gonna go Creighton here. This year with as even as college basketball is, I don't think there's that much of a difference right now between a 1 seed and a 5 seed in the 5 seed Creighton team. There's just not that much different talent wise. Bama, you might be able to say Bama's a little more athletic, and that probably is true. But Creighton is talent wise can match up with Bama. They don't have like a NBA future star like Brandon Miller on their team. but they have a guy like Shireman who can get hot from three. They have a guy like Kalkbrenner down low that can get you 15 and 10. They have enough on this Creighton team. I like the little 5/1 here, especially in a season like this season where I could Bama. Uh, where you're probably not gonna see 3 1 seeds make the Final Four this year. I don't think you will. We'll see when the actual brag comes out, but I just don't see it happening. I think it's too even. It's too even across the board. So we got Creighton and TCU, and right now I'm gonna go Creighton because it's a team that everyone was high on in the beginning of the year. People are hopping kind of back on the bandwagon. Um, Not to, blow my own horn, but I would always tell Will, I was like, this when they were like 7-7 or whatever they were, I'm like, this is the greatest 7-loss team at this point of the season that we've ever seen. Like, Creighton just had some bad luck at those times, and then Kalkbrenner getting hurt, and just some close losses. But this Creighton team is tough. They're top 10 in the country, good. So is TCU, but I like Creighton to get by this one. All right, now we're gonna go down to Purdue's region. Purdue hasn't been playing as good recently. As we all know, they haven't been playing as good recently, but I'm still not too concerned with Purdue. Terribly concerned, but they're obviously going to get by Purdue, Howard, uh, Purdue or Howard or Morehead State. They'll get by. So we got Purdue moving on, and Kentucky and Pittsburgh. Kentucky has really done a good job of stringing some wins together. The bubble's way, they're off the bubble big time. They're playing good basketball. Pittsburgh's had a fantastic year, destroyed expectations. Really cool what Pittsburgh's been able to do. Good that they're back in the tournament, but I think Sheboygan would probably dominate this game down low. And Kentucky's just playing a lot better basketball lately. Pittsburgh's got a good year too, but I like Kentucky here. UConn, West Virginia. UConn had that great non-conference success, and then they've been less good in the Big East, but they're starting to figure it out a little bit more now. West Virginia. I'll go UConn here. I don't love UConn or West Virginia though, if I'm gonna be honest. I don't love either of those teams, but I'm gonna go UConn. Gonzaga, Iona. Iona is a team because they have a legendary Hall of Fame coach, Rick Pitino. I think he'd be able to keep this game close because this might not be a vintage Gonzaga team, but I also at the same time I think maybe Gonzaga not having all the pressure that they've had on them these last few tournaments where it was like they were the 1 seed or the overall 1 seed, and it was expected for them to win a championship. They haven't been able to do that, but I think maybe getting in the tournament as a 4 seed could be a good thing for Gonzaga. A little less pressure, I think. Maybe a chip on the shoulder a little more, something like that. So I still I don't think they're going to get upset here against Iona, but I could see it being close, and it's not out of the realm of possibility that Iona could do something crazy like that. Duke, Oklahoma State. Duke's playing a lot better basketball lately. They're giving me more faith in them. They're playing better basketball. They probably should have won that Virginia game. They kind of got robbed a little bit. Probably should have had some free throws to win that game. I think the ACC even came out and said that's what it should have been. And Oklahoma State, they're a good team, and one of their biggest advantages is down low, their center. Forgot his first name, but Cisse is his last name. He's a big dude. He's a great rim protector. And Oklahoma State's a lot better when he plays. When he wasn't playing, he had a few game stretch where he wasn't playing. Oklahoma State was struggling a lot more. He's healthier now, but Duke has Filipowski, so they kind of offset that advantage for Oklahoma State, I think, a little bit because he's a good rim protector too, great center. Duke's playing better basketball right now. But I lean Duke here. I lean Duke because I think they offset that big advantage Oklahoma State has with Cisse down low. Let's have Duke going on. Tennessee, Hofstra. Tennessee struggles to score the ball sometimes, and it's starting, more and more in the season. It's starting to worry me a little bit. I'm getting, if I'm a Tennessee fan, I would be a little scared because there's just too many times where Tennessee just goes minutes and minutes and minutes. They'll go like 5 minutes, no points. And they'll do that too often. And in March, it's one and done. So you can't really you can't afford an 8-minute stretch without scoring the ball. So I think Hofstra could keep this game close, and maybe this is an upset here. it wouldn't be too shocking to me if Hofstra was able to do that if Tennessee was having one of those days. However, in the 3-14 matchup, I like the length, athleticism, the size of Tennessee. We're gonna have Tennessee move on. Providence, Auburn. Getting thirsty. Providence, Auburn. It comes down to this for me with Providence, Auburn. Providence is the tougher, grittier team that knows how to win close games. They have their players are pretty unselfish. That when you watch Providence, you feel like you're watching a true team. Like anytime, like last year, that was a team. This year, I just think Providence is plays really well as a team. And Ed Cooley's such a good coach, and he's having a great coaching season again. And I like them to beat Auburn. Auburn scares me at times. They're a little erratic. I've said it times before. I think their guard play isn't good enough. It's not going to be good enough in March. Maybe they're able to win one, but I definitely don't think Auburn's winning 2 or 3 games in March. The guard play is just not good enough, as simple as that. And Providence is a tough team, so I like Providence here. Baylor, Vermont. Baylor's got too much scoring, too many talented guards. We got Baylor. Now let's go back up to Purdue and Kentucky because this is a fascinating matchup. One that I thought we were going to see in last year's tournament, probably, or I think it was last year's tournament. Yeah, I thought we were going to see this in last year's tournament, but St. Peter's ended up upsetting both of these teams. So we didn't see it, but it looks likely in this scenario that we would see this matchup. And Purdue's not playing as good right now, and so I kind of lean Kentucky here, not necessarily just because Purdue isn't playing as good, but Purdue's got freshman guards, and we know how important it is to have some veteran guards. And Kentucky also has a freshman point guard, Cason Wallace, but a lot of times he plays like an older player, but then they have Reeves from Illinois State. He's good. Hopefully CJ Frederick gets his hand issue worked out. He's a veteran guard. You got Sheway down low, Toppin's a veteran. So I like Kentucky actually to pull off a little 8-1 upset here and to get by and to move on. And then UConn, Gonzaga. This would be a fascinating matchup too because you have another matchup with two great bigs, Timmy and Sonogo, which would be really fascinating to watch. Strother's been heating up for Gonzaga recently. He's been playing good basketball. UConn has Jordan Hawkins, who's a future NBA player. He's a sniper. So you got the Hawkins-Strother matchup. That's a good matchup. It's an intriguing game, but I'm going to go with the guy who's had so much not Sweet 16, so much tournament success, and that's Mark Few. He hasn't got the big one yet. He doesn't have the championship, but you can't deny the amount of success Gonzaga's had. I got Gonzaga beating UConn in a good one. Good matchup, though, that would be. Duke, Tennessee. And I'm gonna go back to what I said briefly. Tennessee right now, maybe they'll figure it out and I'll change my mind. I could easily change my mind on this one because I like this Tennessee team a good bit, but the scoring droughts are too much. They're too much. And Duke put Proctor at point guard, and they moved Jeremy Roach off the ball, which allowed Jeremy Roach to be more of a playmaker. And Jeremy Roach is a really good playmaker. And so that was a great decision by John Shire. Duke has been a lot better since they made that switch. And with Tennessee's lack of scoring sometimes, I'm gonna go with Duke here. Baylor, Providence. This is a good matchup. It's a really good matchup. I think Providence could frustrate Baylor's guards in this matchup, but I could really see this going either way. But I'm going to go Baylor here because I do like what Baylor's been able to do a lot of the year. And they were up 13 on Kansas, I think at the end of the first half. And Kansas roared back. They had a tremendous second half, ended up winning by, I think it was 16. And Kansas played great in that second half. But Baylor's a good squad. They're a really good squad, a team I really believe in still. They don't have great big men, but their guards are so good that it can probably win them some games. I would be a little concerned though for Baylor about Bryce Hopkins though, because Bryce Hopkins I think would be a real matchup issue for Baylor. So this would be a good one, but I'm going to say Baylor squeaks one out here. We're going to have Baylor go by. All right, and then we got Kentucky, Gonzaga, and I'm going to say No 8 seed run here for Kentucky. We're gonna have the Zags get to the Elite Eight as a 4 seed and surprise some people because it's weird because no one's really talking about Gonzaga right now. They're not getting talked about like they usually do, and that's because they haven't had quite the season that we've seen them have recently. But I like the Zags to get by there. Duke, Baylor. I like Baylor to beat Duke here. I think Duke wouldn't doesn't have the scoring like Baylor has. Baylor's a tough squad. I love Scott Drew. I think he's one of the best coaches in the country. I think Baylor can beat Duke. And then Baylor, Gonzaga, rematch of the 2021 national championship game where Baylor, beat them pretty handedly. And I'm going to have Baylor win again. Now, I will say the only issue is Baylor's got to draw up a game plan to shut down Timmy. But Baylor doesn't have good scoring bigs, but they have pretty good defending bigs, though. Flo Thamba, pretty good defensive interior defense he provides. Chama Chachua, pretty good defense down low. So I like Baylor. So we're going to see Baylor, Creighton in the Final Four. So that's an interesting Final Four pairing. Now we're going to go to the other side. We got Houston and then Texas A&M and Corpus Christi. Houston's a tough squad. I love that team. I'm going to have them go by. A&M and Rutgers. And this is a coin flip game. We all know it. This is 8-9. But I'm gonna give the advantage to Texas A&M just because they're playing so good right now. They're 12-2 in the SEC. And they have a huge game tonight against Tennessee. So I'm really looking forward to that game. That game should be really interesting because Texas A&M is still trying to fight for that SEC regular season championship. So big one for A&M tonight. We're only one game back from Alabama, but I'm going to say Texas A&M because they're playing so good. Miami and Drake. I really like this Drake team. I think they could pull off the upset here. I also really like this Miami team. If you saw in like our official bracket that we made last year, we had Miami going to the Final Four. Miami ended up going to the Elite Eight, but it's a team that I do really believe in. So we'll have Miami beating Drake, but in a close one. I wish Drake was playing a different 5 seed because I'd probably have Drake winning because I think Drake has a good chance of pulling up an upset. Even in this game, they do have a good chance. Marquette, Southern Miss. Marquette, like I said, they probably had the resume for a 3 seed, I thought. They got a 4. Oh, well. Southern Miss, if you would have gave me this matchup 1 week ago before Southern Miss got drummed on the road to South Alabama, I would have probably picked Southern Miss for an upset 13-4 here. But they got drummed by 31, and I'm not sure what was up with that. A little concerned for Southern Miss. They bounced back and they won a couple days later, but I don't know. That's a little concerning. So we're going to go Marquette, which will set up a good matchup between Miami. San Diego State, USC, Wisconsin. I don't like USC or Wisconsin. They're not very good teams at all. I think San Diego State, crap, didn't mean to click that. I think San Diego State would beat either of those teams without a problem. K-State and UC Irvine. K-State, really beat the expectations this year. Tremendous season they're having. They're looking at a 3 seed facing 14 seed UC Irvine. If I remember right, UC Irvine is the team that upset Kansas State when they were a 4 seed in 2019, if my memory serves right. And I'm going to say we're going to see another one, 14-3. So we're going to have 2 14-3 upsets in this bracket. And we're going to see UC Irvine set up a little SoCal matchup here. Moving on to Michigan State, Missouri. This one's tough for me to pick. I'm not going to lie. I don't really have a strong feeling either way. But I really like what Dennis Gates has had. He's had such great success in his first season coming over from Cleveland State. Demoy Hodges is really good. Kobe Brown's really good. So I'll go Missouri here because I would like to see them have some success because they had a few years there where they were down. Okay, we got Texas, Youngstown State. We're gonna have Texas, and that's gonna set up Texas and Missouri. And I think I'm gonna go Texas here. They have good depth. They have a lot of guys that have the potential to score 15 points in a game. They're having a good solid season. Sir Jabari Rice has been great off the bench. One of the great names in college basketball, Sir Jabari. He best shot fake in college basketball. He gets people on that shot fake all the time. But let's go Texas here. Then we got the SoCal matchup, San Diego State, UC Irvine. And I think maybe we saw this matchup earlier in the year. I think we did. I think San Diego State won by 2. So definitely could be close, but I'm gonna have San Diego State winning that one. But I think UC Irvine might be able to do something in that matchup. Miami and Marquette. I personally like Miami a little more than I like Marquette. I think Miami has really good guards. And I like Jim Larinaga. He's a really good coach. He's an old dude. I like Miami though. I really think they're a good squad. So I'm gonna go Miami. And then now we got a little Texas battle here between Houston and A&M. And I think Houston would probably be able to get by A&M here. Their offensive rebounding is really good. Houston, Miami. Love both these teams. I think they're capable of some runs, but Houston has put together a tremendous resume. Only losses are to Bama, and then more of a questionable loss against Temple, but we're gonna have Houston slide by Miami. Then we got San Diego State and Texas, and I think this is it could be a gritty matchup here. It could be a real gritty matchup, but we're gonna go Texas here. San Diego State scores better than they usually do this year, but with that, even still, I think Texas is probably would score too much for San Diego State. That sets up another Texas matchup: Houston and Texas, 1 versus 2. I think Houston is slightly the better team. I think Sasser always has the ability to take over games. I like Houston, a little more talented of a team to me. Maybe not more talented, but they I don't know, their system is better, I think. So I like Houston. Kansas, UNC Asheville. Obviously Kansas balling out recently. Iowa, Arkansas. Like this Arkansas team. They started playing a lot better, took a couple losses, bounced back against Florida with a 19-point win. They have a tough stretch down in these last 4 games, down in these last 4 games because 2 of those games they have a back-to-back at Tennessee and at Bama. Don't remember which one comes first, but they have at Bama, at Tennessee. So that's gonna be tough for Arkansas. But I like Arkansas, talented squad. St. Mary's, VCU. This isn't a vintage VCU team. This isn't a fantastic VCU team. They still defend well, and they could keep this game close because St. Mary's sometimes has some big scoring droughts themselves, and they play slow. They're kind of like Virginia that way, where they play slow, so they do run the risk of sometimes, in a low possession game and you not hit, but St. Mary's has Aiden Mahaney, and Aiden Mahaney's an absolute beast. So I like St. Mary's. Aiden Mahaney could take over a game. He took over that game against Gonzaga a couple weeks ago. If you guys saw that game, you were probably like, I was blown away. I'm like, this dude is taking over right now. But we're gonna have St. Mary's move on. Xavier, Utah Valley. If you've seen any of these before, I love this Xavier team. I think the Xavier team is great. I'm excited about this team for multiple reasons. Good, efficient guards, Boom and Colby Jones, and Kunkel can step out and hit a lot of threes. He's a good 3-point shooter, and they need Freemantle healthy, I think. But Xavier can still make a run without Freemantle if he's not healthy, because Jerome Hunter stepped in and he was 6-man, he stepped in and has been playing good minutes. So we're gonna have Xavier. Northwestern, Oral Roberts. We're gonna have a little 11/6 action. I think Oral Roberts is the America's team a couple of years ago in the tournament. They could do it again this year. They could be America's team. I like this Oral Roberts team. They're really fun to watch. I've only got to see them in 1 game this year, but they're fun to watch though. Iowa State, Eastern Washington. If you guys aren't aware, Eastern Washington has the longest win streak in college basketball. They've won either 17 or 18 in a row. They haven't lost since, I think, December, like early December or something like that. This Eastern Washington team has been destroying the Big Sky this year. Iowa State's had a heck of a season too. I think Iowa State's TJ Otzelberger might be the best coach in basketball and in college basketball right now. Like he is a very, very, very good coach. He's a very good coach. But I almost want to go the upset here. I don't feel like Otzelberger is going to get upset. I don't feel like he will. I don't feel like he's going to let his team get upset. It's going to be a close one though, because Eastern Washington is good. Maryland, Boise State. Maryland's been tearing it up recently. They just got that big win against Purdue about a week ago, and we're going to go Maryland over Boise State. Love what Boise State's been doing though. Boise State could definitely win that game, but I like what Maryland's been doing recently. Arizona beating Samford. And then I'm going to go Arizona over Maryland. Arizona has had some questionable losses this year, but they also have some really good wins. So we're going to go Arizona. And then Oral Roberts, Iowa State. We're going to have Oral Roberts part 2 Sweet 16 run. We got Oral Roberts to beat Iowa State. To see another magical run by Oral Roberts, maybe. Xavier St. Mary's. I like Xavier here. I think Xavier, high octane offense. St. Mary's would probably slow them down a little bit, but not enough. Kansas, Arkansas. Arkansas is playing better basketball, but this Kansas team, they're tough. It's a tough Kansas team. They might not, like Bill Self, I heard on the broadcast yesterday. He said he's like, this team might not be as talented as last year's team, but they're every bit as competitive. Like this team wants to win. So I like Kansas. And that sets up a Kansas Xavier matchup. And I'm going to go Kansas because they have a point guard in DeJuan Harris that doesn't get talked about enough for how good he is. He has 26 assists and only 2 turnovers in his last 3 games. He doesn't get talked about enough, doesn't get as much love. And he's a championship winning point guard. And you have a championship winning coach in Bill Self. I think Kansas can squeak by Xavier in that one. And then Oral Roberts, they don't find a way to get to the Elite Eight. They have a great run. We see Arizona beat Oral Roberts. And that sets up a matchup, Kansas, Arizona. And I think Kansas is better than Arizona, but it's not by much. Arizona does have some question marks from the point guard position. And I like Kirk Kriisa. I think he's pretty good. But I think his decision making is questionable at times. He's a good 3-point shooter. But I think he's a big question mark for me, especially in these big games. Arizona's really talented down low, so Kansas would have all they could ask for down low. I think that would be tough for Kansas to stop Tubelis and Ballo. But I think DeJuan Harris could cause some turnovers for Kirk Kriisa, open up the floor for Kansas. Maybe Grady Dick gets hot. I like Kansas to beat Zona here, and which will be a terrific Elite Eight matchup. All right, so we got Kansas, Houston, Baylor, Creighton in the Final Four. Let's start with Kansas and Houston. And right off the bat, these are 2 teams that have been to the Final Four recently. Houston was in it a couple of years ago, and then they were in the Elite Eight last year. And Kansas just won the national championship. But we're going to have, this is a tough one. I'm going to have Kansas. I'm going to have Kansas beat Houston in this one. I had Houston win it all last time. I want to switch it up because I think these teams are even. We're going to have Kansas beating Houston. It'll be a tough matchup. I don't know exactly, where the advantages would come from, but I like Kansas to beat Houston. And then Baylor, Creighton. This is a good one. I would like to see this. I like to see this. I'm gonna go with Creighton though. I'm gonna go with Creighton. As a 5 seed. I don't even think we've ever had a 5 seed. We maybe had them one time go to the championship, but I don't think a 5 seed has ever won it all. But we're gonna have Creighton in the championship game to set up a little Midwestern classic here. Lawrence, Kansas, and Omaha, Nebraska. And I'm gonna have Kansas repeat as champions in this bracket. I think this year is open for a Kansas repeat. I've lived in Kansas for a few years, so I am a Kansas fan. Also Illinois fan of a few teams, but I'm not, I think Kansas could do it this year. But I will say this, Creighton gave Kansas their toughest test until the championship game in the tournament last year, and they're healthier this year. So we're gonna say, this one's tough for me, but we're gonna have Creighton losing on a Grady Dick buzzer beater, 69-68. It would be a great game. I would be so excited to see a Kansas Creighton game. I think it'd be fun to see. And And people are starting to believe in Creighton more, but I've stayed believing in Creighton this whole season. They're really good. I think foul trouble could be an issue for Creighton down the stretch at a time, but yeah. So I appreciate you guys watching. Here's the bracket we got this time. I think me and Will, we're gonna get one out Friday, and then conference tournament season's right around the corner. We're gonna have some conference tournament predictions, and then we might even do like some when conference tournament comes around, we might do like some individual matchup, maybe some predictions on that front, maybe some picks and predictions on some big games or like a set of big games. Not sure exactly, but we're gonna have more videos coming out down the stretch here. So if you do, like the videos, we're gonna have a lot. We should have a lot more coming out. More. We're gonna be more consistent. And so with posting and things like that. So if you guys enjoy it, please like and subscribe, comment, anything you want to comment. Love to see that. So appreciate the support and everything. And we'll see you guys in the next one.